Hey, peace and blessings to you. My name is Jerry B. I am the EntreMusician, and so are you. And definitely is the young brother who's sitting to the left of your screen. He is historian, musicologist, pioneer, and founder of Soul Patrol, which is celebrating 25 years of doing their thing. If you love classic soul music, Bob Davis, my friend, is the foremost authority on what's happening in soul music. Personally, I'll say that our band, SounDoctrine, was given a vitamin B shot from an incredible interview that Bob Davis, or a review, I should say, that Bob Davis did on our very first album, Perseverance. We'll talk about all of that, but we'll talk about how he has helped so many groups, how he and Soul Patrol is the statisticians of everything that's going on in soul music, past, present, and future. Bob Davis, my friend, what's happening?
Hey, Jerry, I couldn't have made up a better intro. So that was, I appreciate that. I appreciate those words.
From my heart, bro.
It's real interesting because I just got a flyer in email, and it was from a bunch of like hip hop people putting together a hip hop event. And right on the flyer, it says on there, right in the front of the flyer, someone named DJ Envy. I don't know who DJ Envy is, but DJ Envy will be at our event, and he'll be available to listen to your music. It costs $30 if you want him to listen to your music.
Oh,
not review your music, not play your music, you $30. And so I posted it onto Facebook. And I said to people, I said, first of all, I know some of you will think that this is payola. This is not payola. This is not illegal. This is actually a great business model. It's probably something I should have always been doing, but I just didn't do it because I just didn't kind of feel right about it. But you know, you might see a flyer just like this posted on Soul Patrol at some point in the near future, because when you are in a position and you are on the receiving end of all this music, you have to have a way to filter it out. Because most of the music that people send you is bad music. And so people, of course, they got upset. They're like, "Oh, Bob, what are you getting ready? You getting ready to sell?" I said, "No, it's a big deal. First of all, if I get 50 pieces of music, whether it's a CD or a file, right, people want me to listen. Hey, Bob, what do you think about this?
Right.
To you, that's not a big deal. To me, it's a big deal because that's a very labor-intensive activity. And to actually listen, because most people don't listen to music. If you give them some music, they might put it on, but for most people nowadays, music is a background activity. It's not a foreground activity. They have music on while they're doing something else. I come from a different generation. I really listen to music. If you ask me to listen to the music, I really listen to it.
Absolutely.
And then if you're asking me for feedback,
you give it.
Well, yeah, but
sometimes you'll give it if they don't ask.
That's true too. But it's like if I say, well, your music is average. Mm-hmm. People are like, well, what do you mean it's average? I've been working on this for like 5 years. And you're saying it's average. Or if I say it sucks, what do you mean it sucks? I've been working on this for 5 years. Right. If I say it's great, then they're like, oh, okay, that's what I expected. I'm like, you don't know how lucky you are, because see, when you review a music, I'm gonna get around to SounDoctrine in just a moment. It's like there's a curve. If I get 100 pieces of music, well, there's going to be 10 songs that'll be great. At the other end of the spectrum, there's going to be 10 songs that will be terrible. And then the other 80 songs are all average. So if you send me your music to review, or not even to review, they just, oh, I just, let me know what you think about this. I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to give you an honest review. There's only 10% of it that's going to be great. So when I tell you that it's average, you better believe me, because it can only be that. That's what it's going to be most of the time. Sometimes it'll suck, and I'll tell you that it sucks. But for all 100 pieces, I have to write something about it. I can't just call you on the phone and say, oh, it's average, because that's not going to be good enough for you. You're going to be saying, what does that mean? Or if I say it sucks, you're going to say, well, what does that mean? Even if I say it's great, you're still going to say, what does that mean? I got to write something. It's going to take me at least 20 minutes to a half hour to write something. And I'm not necessarily talking about a comprehensive, detailed review. To write something, to write anything. So I got to think about it. I got to put it down. I got to, delete it. I got to write it again. So at the end of the day, I'm spending 20, 30 hours a week on music. Let me just call it music from unsigned artists.
That is right.
So if somebody asked you to work on something for 20 or 30 hours a week, don't you think you should get paid for that work?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
And that's the point. So I take it seriously, because I consider myself to be a music critic in the old school sense of what your expectation as a reader thinks that a music critic is supposed to be. You're damn near supposed to be already a historian of the artist, even if you never heard of the artist, before, yesterday. Because when I post a review, people are going to ask me. People are going to automatically think that I am an expert on that artist. And that's what I strive to be. So in the case of SounDoctrine, you sent me the SounDoctrine CD. And, I was intrigued. I'm like, what is Christian jazz supposed to be? What is that supposed to be? And, I listened to it. And then I listened to it again. And I try to listen to it in a variety of situations, just sitting around, while I'm doing other work, while I'm driving, to see what the vibe really is of the music. So I listened to it, several times, and then I put together something. I wrote the review and I sent it to you. And I think that you were impressed.
I was actually overwhelmed. I mean, here's the thing. I don't recall at this point how I got in touch with Soul Patrol. I was scouring online because, the album is done, so you have to get the word out and whatnot. And I don't recall, but I sent it in, you had contact information. And maybe it was 2 weeks later, I had really forgotten about it. We were trying to put a show together because we were going to need to hit the stage to promote it. And what I didn't expect, Bob, was the in-depth analysis of you getting what we were trying to do, because we were still trying to figure out what we were trying to do. You know what I mean? And for you to, have such an analysis on that and almost like forensic, with the bass doing this, and you went into the melodies, you went, you counter juxtapose against the harmonies and the message, and we were not preachy. We were, you know what I mean? And I was blown away, and I'm thinking, because I'm at my day job, and I'm thinking, somebody gets it. like, wow, you know, he's really helping me to sew into what we need to be doing. And like I said before, your invitation down to Philadelphia for the Soul Patrol convention, I think it was 2003, if I'm not mistaken, and meeting Marlon Saunders and all of these great artists who, you know, we remain in touch to this day. You introduced me to Kevin Amos, right from Pittsburgh. He was down there, you know what I mean? DJ extraordinaire, and he and I keep in contact to this day. It's just, you were building a network of unsigned artists and people who could count on each other to encourage each other, to challenge each other, and push the music forward. And so you were building more than a review of people's music. You were really building community. That's what
Well, one of the things, and you know, I want to get into this here, and you know, if we need to take 2 episodes to do that, I just want to let you know we can do that.
That's
but
cool.
There's, in my case, it's really a case of you don't know what you don't know. And I don't come from the music business. You know, by trade, I'm a technologist. You know, in terms of work, I've been in corporate America as an IT executive. I don't consider myself a person who's even part of the music industry, even today. I'm a person who loves listening to music. I'm a music fan. And so that's the whole reason I started Soul Patrol. I started thinking about stuff, and I wanted to have a place to put down what those thoughts were. And of course, nothing ever goes as planned. I started
Sometimes
getting
for a great thing, right? That's a great thing. Sometimes.
I started getting music in from artists that I had never heard of, asking me to do exactly what you did. It's like, hey, I've got a new album. Can you listen to it? Can you give me some feedback? What do you think? And what that turns into, and we were talking about this a little bit beforehand, is, you know, onesie on a onesie twosie basis, it's not bad. But when you're getting in, you know, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 pieces of music that are coming in every week, that's more like a job. That's more like a job, which is fine if you love listening to music. I mean, look at all these CDs I have back here. You know, I love listening to music. I'm not going to apologize for that. And the thing is that soulpatrol.com, soul-patrol.com is an independent website. We're not part of some organization. We're not part of Rolling Stone magazine, or we're not part of Universal Music or anything. Right. The only way Soul Patrol gets paid for is out of my pocket. and my brother, I should mention, I'm the co-founder.
Michael.
So, you know, and we do this as a partnership, and there's something else to that as well. This is what we talk about. And it's no different than when we were growing up and we were living in the projects and we shared a bedroom and we had bunk beds. And we used to talk all the time, you see? And of course, now we no longer have bunk beds. Not only don't we live together, we don't even live in the same state, but we talk and it's still the same. So it's keeping that whole connection alive as well. But in the real world, you got bills to pay. This costs money. In fact, we just got through making a major investment in our technology infrastructure, which you want to talk about as well. It's real money, you know. You know, these people, you know, you say, you know, we own our own server. We're one of the few African American owned businesses that own our own server. Okay. And why do we do that? Because we think that that's what we're supposed to do. Okay. Right now we're using Zoom to do this this video meeting, which is fine. That's what's happening nowadays is Zoom. We don't use Zoom. We
You got
have
your
our
own?
own. We have our own online television studio.
Oh, word up. Word up. That's
Why
excellent.
that? Why would we do that? Wouldn't it be cheaper, a whole lot cheaper to just use Zoom? Of course it would be. But that's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be on the bleeding edge. And we think that we're supposed to provide some level of leadership.
Mhm. So, with that TV studio, it's an online station. Is that something that you reach out to other content creators?
But what we've been doing is we basically installed it in February of 2021. And since that time, we've been doing a whole bunch of experimentation, although it's not really experimentation because I call it live prototyping. We've been doing a lot of interviews. We have a program that we're producing on there called the Soul Patrol Spotlight. And I'm the host of the Soul Patrol Spotlight. And what we do, what we what we do on the Soul Patrol Spotlight is we bring people in, and it's kind of like the wide world of sports. We do anything with it. Sometimes we interview people. Sometimes we have panel discussions. Sometimes we do concerts. You know, we've done movie premieres because we can broadcast movies. There's a whole lot of things we can do there. And of course, when you can do, just because you can do a whole lot of things, that doesn't mean you should do a whole lot of things.
That's true.
So we're trying to really figure out from a business perspective, what do we want to focus on? And then at the same time, we want to figure out how can we make some of this technology available to people in our audience that have particular skill sets.
Right.
So trying to figure all of that out. But the last event that we did was about 2 weeks ago. Our topic was Jimi Hendrix and Black Legacy. And so we had a panel discussion. We had the author of a book that was called Jimi Hendrix and Black Legacy. He came on, he showed a documentary that he put together that's based on the book. And then after his screening, we had a panel discussion that included Daryl McNeil from the Black Rock Coalition, the author Corey Washington, and the great Ernie Isley from the Isley Brothers.
Yeah.
So we had a panel discussion. I was the moderator, and so we had a panel discussion about the topic. And it's kind of like, that's not a new topic. We've been talking about that topic on Soul Patrol for many, many, many years. Absolutely. But having somebody like Ernie Isley participate in it, Ernie Isley came and he told us a story about how he met Jimi Hendrix when he was 11 years old. Because Jimi Hendrix was part of the Isley Brothers, and Jimi Hendrix taught him how to play the guitar.
That is good.
And so when you listen to something by the Isley Brothers today, you're hearing the legacy of Jimi Hendrix because of Ernie Isley.
Absolutely.
And how mind-blowing is that? You can only have that kind of conversation because Ernie Isley's not coming to my house to have that conversation, but the technology allows us to do that and to do it in a way that makes sense for everyone involved. So that's like some space age stuff. And we've had some interesting people. I mean, we had Brian Auger. We had Brian Auger in, and we had that kind of conversation with him. We had Frida Payne in. We had that kind of conversation with her. We also we did a retrospective on Luther Vandross. Of course, Luther Vandross is dead. So we we brought in people that had played with Luther Vandross, like Jason Miles and Paulette McWilliams and Kevin Owens. And so let them discuss it.
Right.
And then, of course, we have an audience. And so the audience can ask questions also. And was very successful.
That's excellent.
These are the kind of opportunities that you now have. Why would I get involved in doing something like this? I've always been involved in doing stuff like this on the internet. It's just, how do you take advantage of the technology and how do you do it in a cost-effective way, right? So that you at least don't lose money.
That's right.
All of these things, you can't always make money, but you don't want to lose money because, as I tell people all the time, when I say, well, if you want to advertise on the site, you got to pay for it. It's not free,
Absolutely.
Why can't you just do me a solid? It's not about me doing a solid. If you have a product and you don't have money to promote that product, you should just take that product and put it back in the drawer. Because all you're doing is wasting your money, you're wasting people's time. And what you're really asking me to do, if you're asking me to put something on my website for free, what you're really saying is, oh, I don't need to promote my product.
Yeah.
I don't need to pay for it. Bob Davis's family will pay for the promotion of my product. Now, if I went, now that might be okay with some people, but if I went to my family and I said, "Oh, here's some guy out here in Texas or Kansas or California or Illinois, he's got a new album, and it's actually a pretty good album, but he doesn't have the money to pay to promote it. He thinks that you should pay. I should take money away from you guys and put it on the site and promote it." Now, to some people, that might sound okay. But what that means is that whatever that cost, it'll be that much less money that'll be coming into this house to pay for the stuff that we need in this house in order to promote that guy's album that you never heard of.
Right.
Do you think that that's a wise financial investment? Well, of course they would say no.
Of course.
I try to explain this to people. Yeah. Soul Patrol is not about Bob Davis trying to get rich. Soul Patrol is about Bob Davis trying to first make sure we don't lose any money. Second of all, make sure that the site pays for itself. Yeah. So, but I didn't understand any of this when I first started the site. It took a while to understand not only how all of these pieces are, how to connect the dots between all of these pieces. And then at the same time, how do I talk about it to people? Because nobody comes on the internet expecting to pay for anything. Almost by definition, people think, well, hey, I'm here. Why should I pay for anything? I got music, I got TV, I got all kinds of stuff here. Why do I need to pay for anything besides whatever my monthly internet access bill is?
Exactly. Well, the same thing went down with musicians. After the sale of CDs kind of faded away, and we went into the whole, Spotify, Napster, Amazon, all of that. The perception was music became free. It's ubiquitous, and I'm paying my $9.99 to the subscription service, but very, very, very little of that money gets to the actual songwriter and the artist. And so it just became a perception that because it's online, it's all you can eat.
So how do you make sure? I'm gonna flip the script here for just a moment. Sure. How do you make sure that you can be economically viable in doing the things that you're trying to do with SounDoctrine?
the best way to do it is to maintain a presence and use those streaming platforms as advertising that really drive subscriptions from your website. So at SounDoctrine.com, there is subscription based where it's more engagement between you and I, or the band and I, and less about the middle. Because if we build community from the website, I mean, we can see what just happened as of this recording. Facebook went down, boom. You know, they were down 6-7 hours, you know. And if any other platform that you tend to be dependent on, including, as you said before, Zoom, you know, whatever platform that you actually do not own or control, you know, can become a liability for you and your company. So one of the things with the EntreMusician.com and with SounDoctrine.com, we begin to set up this subscription service. So yeah, you can go back all the way back to Perseverance to, you know, our latest stuff and the singles and the remixes that we're putting out. And you can access that because you belong to the community. And that was the only sustaining way that we could keep the shit.
One of the things I noticed that you did early on, I don't know if you still do it or not, there's a term in corporate resourcing. It's called fungible resourcing model. Some people might are sitting out there saying, well, what does that mean? Well, all that means is that if you're doing a project and you want that project to have a profile that is, let me just say it's non-local. It could be national, it could be international, but you definitely want to have a face to your customers that you could potentially be anywhere. Well, the way to do that is that, of course, you could travel extensively, but as a musician, you know, you've kind of got like a small business. There's some things that you can't scale to because, you know, they're cost prohibitive. So you can't just travel everywhere as a unit, as SounDoctrine. You came up with the notion to say, well, you know, why can't I have SounDoctrine and have the bass player be in Baltimore and the drummer be in you know, Miami or whatever. Right. That doesn't mean that the thing is, when I do something like that, I can't just have one drummer because I can't be flying the guy from Miami all over the country. What makes more sense is for me to have multiple drummers. I have a drummer in Miami, I have a drummer in DC, I have a drummer in Boston. And so if for SounDoctrine to play in Boston, I should have as many of the pieces of SounDoctrine already pre-located in those cities, so that when it comes time for me to do a gig in one of those cities, the band is already there. The only person that in theory has to travel is me.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
And so that's a fungible resourcing model.
See, that's what I'm talking about. You pointing things out that we were doing, and I didn't have a title for that. I didn't know that's what we were doing. What we were doing.
That's a fungible resourcing model. And those are the kind of things that in order to be successful, you know, as an entrepreneur musician, you have to be willing, not only willing to think about, but willing to implement, because most people will say, but the people that's playing on stage with you are not the same people that's on the album cover. What's up with that? Are you trying to perpetrate some kind of fraud? It's like, no, it's not that. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure we can come to your city. We're trying to make sure we can perform in your city. Yeah. And this is how we do it.
The interesting thing about SounDoctrine was, as you know, from the beginning, we were never the Jackson 5. It was never Marvin, Tito. You know, it was always a conglomerate of different musicians, different singers on each track and each song. And so, especially early on, when the ladies, during that time in our lives, 20 years ago, the ladies were getting married, they were building families. And so they couldn't always be on the road. So Cliff Barnes, who was our music director, he began immediately in every song making instrumental arrangements for it. So again, like you said, you can have this saxophone player, that saxophone player, trumpet player, do the lead melodies, and then boom, when the ladies could be on the road, when they could travel, cool. When they couldn't, cool. So fungible, isn't
I tell you something. You talked about the review of Perseverance today. Do you remember when you guys did that gig in Cleveland for Myron Ruffin?
I remember. Yeah, we did a couple gigs with Myron.
Well, I was one in particular I'm thinking of. I guess it was the Unity Day concert.
Yeah, yeah.
And so Myron had invited me to come out to the gig. And for those of you who don't know, Myron Ruffin's a great promoter who happens to live in Cleveland, Ohio. He's also does things with Soul Patrol.
Yeah.
So it was this was held in this big park right in the middle of the hood in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And so, I'm walking in there with my wife and my daughter, see Myron, and he says to me, "Well, Bob, we need you to MC part of the show." And I said, "So you want to put me to work?" I thought I was just coming out here to enjoy myself.
Hang up.
Said, "Well, we just want you to MC the portion of the show with SounDoctrine." And I said, "Well, of course I'll be glad to do it. Why would you want me to do that?" I said, "Because nobody here knows enough, knows anything about the band to be able to introduce them properly." Now he's saying this to me. I had met you once, when you came to the Soul Patrol convention. And of course I did the review on the album. So he's just looking at the review and he said, "Well, Bob knows a lot about these guys." I didn't know anything. But it's kind of like, one of the biggest things that people talk about in the music business is, fake it till you make it. And it's like, that is so apropos. Now, of course, you shouldn't fake it so much that you become a fraud. But I mean, you can come up to speed quickly to do these things. And so, again, little did I know, what happened over the course of time is that I was invited to MC lots of events over the course of many years. And not only MC events, but in some cases actually get paid to do that. And that was never a part of the plan. Never, ever, 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 ever. But these things evolve. And I guess part of what I'm saying here, and I would encourage the people in your audience to understand that even though, it's really important to have a business plan, it's really important to, not bite off more that you can chew, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Once you get started, you really don't know what direction all of this is going to take, because the music business, unlike any other business, is completely unpredictable. And the directions that it takes off into, you just have to be prepared emotionally, mentally, physically, to do almost anything just to be able to survive in it. Not to thrive in it, but just to survive. And that's something a lot of people don't understand. And a lot of people get involved with the music business and they don't have some of their P's and Q's together and they get burnt.
You're right, because this is the foundation of the EntreMusician, in the sense that you have to think about the entrepreneurial aspects of what you're doing. And I was at fault. I mean, because I remember when we were recording Perseverance, and Rick Rubin, she was the engineer. All I'm thinking about is the music. That's, you know, you're a musician, you think about the music. That's it. You know, and then maybe you might want to dabble into the artwork and, you know, photos and whatnot. But, Rick Wilmich asked while we were mixing, he said, okay, so now how are you going to promote it? Promote it? You know, yeah, well, what's your marketing strategy? What? I'm sorry, what are you talking about? You know, and it was that question that sent me on, you know, like, look, you know, once CD Baby sends you back those 200 CDs and you have to open up the box, they can't stay here in the basement. You know, something has to happen. You know what I'm saying? And again, it's about, you know, making sure that now you have to put on another hat. I'm just not the producer of this project. I'm not just a whatever drummer, saxophone player. There has to be something. I can't rely on anybody to do it. We certainly, we're not signed by Sony or Warner Brothers or Universal. And so it's done. Now it's all on you. How many hats can you wear? And it is unpredictable. And there's a lot of learning that you have to do. There's a learning curve that's huge and giant. But, you know, if you take a step at a time, that's just like you and Mike, you know, we're saying, hey, you know, I like listening to music, but look at the archives and look at the institution that Soul Patrol is now, because you went through the years and you did what you needed to do to, you know, experiment with the technology and dialogue with the musicians and establish the relationships. I just got to say one thing about you too, Bob. And you know, my nose is brown enough, so I don't have to say nothing out of me. You know, but just in working with you from that review you did from the Cleveland situation with Myron, from introducing me to Kevin Amos and us doing the things at the University of Pittsburgh that he put together, you know, and invited me to be one of the presenters there. You were there. I mean, things like that. But one thing that I really dig about you, man, is the way that you continually keep your connection strong. I mean, like, look at us. It's been about 3 years maybe since I talked and texted and dialogue with you, but you have the ability to pick that up, and you do that across the world. It's not just in Cleveland, Ohio. It's in Pittsburgh. It's in Newark. It's in Philadelphia. It's in Chicago. It's in LA. And everyone, every time you say the name Bob Davis, it's a positive thing. It's like, oh yeah, yeah, Soul Patrol. I was talking with Michael Calhoun from the dance band just yesterday. Yo, Kermit Henderson, you know, Bob Davis. I mean, you know, there's something synonymous about your name with making, you know, the integrity factor is there. And I really, really appreciate that, because you can go anywhere. Chris Jasper, Isley Brothers, you know, Bob Baldwin, Gary Hines, Sounds of Blackness. And it's just, yo, Bob Davis, Bob Davis. And I really appreciate that about you, man. I just wanted to tell you, it's just, I'm grateful not only for our friendship, but what you do for soul music in general. Now, I need to ask you this question because I know that we are on a time schedule with you. But let me ask this. What would be the foremost advice? And you put some gems out there already, but what would be the foremost advice? Because you're not just an expert in the classic soul genre, but in working with as many unsigned artists. We've talked about entrepreneurship, we've talked about the normal P's and Q's, but the first piece of advice right off the top, what do you give to an artist the first time he or she comes to you for help, for advice? What's that?
The first thing I tell people, or first question I have for people is, what is your marketing budget? And they're like, but you haven't even listened to the music yet. I said, because I've been down the road too many times with people that really have a great product, but then they have zero marketing budget. And if your marketing budget is zero, don't even release it. Put it in the drawer, save it for next year. Does it cost that much money to advertise on Soul Patrol? I said, I got news for you. Soul Patrol is not the only place you're going to have to advertise. You're going to have to advertise in a whole bunch of places. So, and it takes real money. And I'm not talking about $10. I mean, it's like, I'm talking about mortgage money. Think about it that way. Even to put on a small marketing campaign, you need to set aside the same kind of money that you would set aside to pay your mortgage every month on the marketing of your project. I'm really talking about like $1,000 to $1,500 a month to put, and I'm talking about a small marketing campaign.
Sure.
And I'm not talking about, you're going to be, running commercials on the Tonight Show. I'm saying just to make sure you have a presence on all the websites, medium-sized websites that you're going to need to have a presence on, to make flyers, to mail those flyers out, to set up an email list, and then, what you end up having to do is you end up having to bring people on board to do these things, unless you can do them all yourself, which you might be able to do, but then you don't have time to do anything else. Can you do graphics? Can you do audio engineering? Can you, and you might be able to do these things, but they are labor intensive and they take a lot of time. So you have to figure out, well, I have to bring somebody on board to do graphics. Well, how much is that going to cost me? So you need to have a budget specifically put aside for marketing and promotion. If you don't have that, it's kind of like a few years ago, I had the opportunity to teach a bunch of people about radio. It's a new low power FM radio station I was launching in Philadelphia. They brought me on board as a volunteer, of course, to be the station manager, program manager, training manager. And so I was training a whole bunch of people. And one of the things I told them, I said, if you have a radio show, but you don't have any listeners, do you really have a radio show if nobody's listening to it? Of course not. You got to have listeners. Where do you think those listeners should come from? How do they know that they need to tune in every Sunday night at 10 o'clock to listen to your show? Your show. How are they going to find out about that? Well, I guess somebody will be advertising it. I said, You have to advertise it. If you don't advertise it, why should I be willing to listen to it if you're not willing to advertise it? And why should and even if it's good, when I come back, why should I come back and listen to it next week and the week after and the week after and the week after? It's because you should be telling me how good the show is, what's coming up, why I should tune in next week, and the week after, and the week after, and the week after. You have to promote it. And I'm going to tell you something. I am the program director here. If I see that you're not promoting your show, guess what I'm going to do? You're going to be fired. Because what you're telling me is that you expect somebody else to promote your radio show. Now, maybe eventually somebody who likes it will, but if you're not willing to do it, nobody else is going to be willing to do it. Well, how do I do that? So guess what? It's the same thing if you were a music artist. You got to make up flyers, you got to send out emails, you got to get people, and it doesn't matter who those people are that you get to listen. It doesn't matter if it's your wife and your wife's cousin and their grandmother, and you just need people to listen. Because if you don't have that, you don't have a show if nobody ever listens to it. Well, this is the same thing. You have to, it's just as important to the success of you as an artist as the level of quality of the production work that you're doing in the studio. It's just as important. Oh, okay. So that's really my first piece of advice. Because I assume that for the most part, if you're doing a whole album and it's your first album, there's going to be something on there that's good. Why? Because you've been working on that album for your whole life.
That's correct.
So there's going to be something on there that's good. So once you have something that's good, what do you do with it? You got to promote it. You got to tell other people this. And it's not like there is nobody like Berry Gordy around. People think that there's a Berry Gordy that's right around the corner. You know, that like, oh, okay, I finished my CD. All I got to do is get it into this person's hands, and then they do the rest of it. There's no person like that. You have to actually do, all the blood, sweat, and tears. You know, and you have to, and it's always been that way. There's always been guys that have been selling, music out of the trunk of their car. Always.
Absolutely. Well, you know what, for sure, as you said earlier, there's going to have to be a part two.
Right.
Where the schedule is on point. But there's going to have to be a part two, because I think we're really just getting started, because I want to get into the 25 years of Soul Patrol and a little bit more about how you and Michael put the plan together. And it came from just a listening to experience to being very influential across the board, if you are into soul music at all.
I'm also going to send you a document that's like an overview of Soul Patrol, so you can review that. But I gotta go.
All right, brother. Well, peace and blessings to you. That's
Set up part two.
Soul Patrol. This is part one. We will get a part two. My name is Jerry B. I am an EntreMusician. Bob Davis is an EntreMusician. But you know what? So are you. We will see you again.
All right.